Before we get into the video real quick, I want to say, yes, I know my mic fades in and out and gets loud and lower. There's nothing I can do about it. It's the echo of the room. I'm currently trying to fix it, but I hope you guys enjoy the video. So if you don't recently know, I had to RMA my 1060 6GB version, and on top of that, there was somebody at my job who let me borrow their 1070, okay? So my 1060 that I have is the Asus dual overclock version, which runs about a total of $310 currently right now on Amazon and stuff like that. And the 1070 that he let me borrow is the MSI 1070 Twin Frozer Edition that's running about $450 to $500 currently right now. Both of these cards are not made brand new anymore. You can't buy them absolutely 100% brand new on Amazon. You can, but you can't buy them directly from Amazon anymore and get them shipped to you, okay? You have to go available from these sellers and do stuff like that. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump straight into it. So first of all, we have Shadow of War. Shadow of War, you're not going to see a big FPS gain right here. Also, I want to mention really quickly that the 1060 numbers and FPS that I'm going to mention were all done with no recording involved. What that means is it's running at the maximum it can. All of these 1070s that I'm about to tell you are recorded on the screen and are indeed in fact being hindered by me recording. So take that with a grain of salt and kind of add the FPS. For people who don't know, you get 10% FPS increase, okay, when you're not recording. So for an example, the 1070 here or the 1060 would not get any FPS increase because I'm giving you raw numbers when I was not recording. 1070 would get a 10% FPS increase to anything that I'm telling you about, okay? So Shadow of War, we have same settings for both graphics cards here. I usually get when playing that game about 76 FPS. And, you know, for the 1070, 78 FPS. So you're not going to see a huge major increase. Even if you add 10% to that, I believe it's 83. Not a major FPS gain right there. You know, it's not that most demanding of the game out of all the ones. And that was on ultra settings, okay? Ultra settings, everything. Now, the 1060 can run ultra settings, everything on the game. I personally do high and ultra settings, a mixture of it because, you know, whatever. But I have done the 1060 on basically ultra settings, and it doesn't even drop that down that much. You only get about an 8 FPS increase. So Far Cry 5, we have right here where the 1060 on high settings gets 60 FPS, and the 1070 on ultra everything. I'm talking everything except for motion blur. I turned motion blur for all these games off because it gives me a headache. We're getting 76 FPS. So overall, more than a 10 to 15 FPS gain right there. Watch Dogs 2 was a little bit iffy, so the gameplay you're going to be watching is actually ultra gameplay. It's all set to ultra, but I noticed that it was stuttering really bad, so I did a second take. Forgot to hit record, but I did a second take and turned down the 1070 settings to exactly what my 1060 was, and we see definitely an FPS gain right here. So usually my 1060 running flat out on Watch Dogs 2, I would get 60 to 65 FPS. The 1070 gets a total of 85 through 90 FPS on the same settings as my 1060 with no stuttering or issues. If you turn up to ultra settings, like I did with the 1070 in the gameplay you're watching right now, with a 1060, it is basically terrible. It only runs at like 40, maybe 35 FPS. But that does also have to do with the limitation of my CPU being maxed out as well on top of that. So just keep that in mind. Also keep in mind that the 1070 without recording actually reaches 100 FPS. So it goes to 100 FPS, and I did actually see that. So Black Ops 4 is our biggest increase in FPS right here. Black Ops 4 with my 1060, and I left the settings the same to be fair with Black Ops 4. And we did the test in Blackout, okay? My 1060, I get 70 through 80 FPS while playing with my 1060. The 1070, we get over 100 FPS constant. There's no drops below that. And you go ahead and add the 10% to that, and easily, there is definitely a major winner right here, without a doubt, okay? Finally, going on to our last game, we have Darksiders 3, which I uncapped the FPS of. If you're wondering how to do that, there's top link, and there's going to be a card in the top right-hand corner of the screen. Click that card and go watch that video, and it shows you how to unlock the game's FPS to where you can get over 100 FPS if you're able to do so. But right here with the 1060, we get a total of 70 to 75 FPS, and with the 1070, we get a solid, steady 90 FPS at all times, except for when there's micro stutters, which is not part of the graphics card problems or how it can't handle the game, but it is actually part of the game's problems, and the creators of the game are working on fixing it, so I do not count that towards the stats right here. So 1060, we get 70, 75 FPS. 1070 absolutely 100% smashes it with a 90 FPS steadily throughout the whole thing, okay? So there is that. Keep in mind as well, the 1060 that I'm using is overclocked, okay? All right? So this is not a standard 1060, and this is what it did against the 1070, okay? So just keep that in mind. But that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. And if you guys are looking to get a 1070 and you have a 1060, I would say it's worth it, but don't go immediately trade in your 1060 to get a 1070. Kind of save up a little bit, and then, you know, make sure that you can flip your 1060 when you go to buy that 1070. And on top of that, if you're thinking about getting a 1070 or 1060, I would go with the 1070 if you can afford it. So that's it. I hope you guys can enjoy the video, and I'll see you guys next time.